Ish is about to hit the fan. We're now in 2026, and as you guys already know, health insurance premiums are going to skyrocket. We've been warned about this before the turn of the new year, and many Americans are not prepared for it. And that is probably one of the reasons why they're trying to flee the country. Well, anyway, I want you guys to look at all of these videos. You won't believe your eyes and ears with how some of these premiums have skyrocketed over the last couple of weeks. It's time for another reality check.
I make about $60K a year. My healthcare premium just doubled, and now it's about $500 a month. It's a lot of money. Only a brainwashed dipshit would rather spend 20% of their paycheck on healthcare than using 4% of their tax dollars on it.
So a couple of weeks ago, I got an email from my insurance provider, my health insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, that they were going to withdraw $594.39 for my next premium payment. All right, fine, no problem. That was 2 weeks ago. This morning they sent me this. $2,278.36. Yeah, that's a little bit more than 500 and whatever it was. Now here's the important part for all you people that think anyone who gets subsidies are losers. I don't get subsidies. I never did. You know what I mean? You know how they told you it's only going to impact the people that get the premium subsidy or whatever they called it? Yeah. No. Turns out, as we all knew, that's a lie. That's a lie.
Happy New Year, and a friendly reminder to direct all of your insuring high price complaints to Republicans in their big, beautiful bill. Already, people are starting to realize that their insurance is getting ready to double, and people like this guy is blaming the Obamas. Obama hasn't been in office for years. This is all on Republicans who not only took all subsidies away in their big, beautiful bill, but also refused to compromise and work with Democrats during the government shutdown to try to resolve this. Republicans have also been fighting the Affordable Care Act since it started, promising that they're going to come up with a better solution, and they still have nothing to show, not even a concept of a plan. Anyways, Happy New Year, and vote like your healthcare depends on it, because it does.
You know I love a good FAFO, and I feel like we're about to witness an absolute whopper. But something in the back of my brain tells me that feckless turd Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he's got to have a backup plan, right? Because by denying the vote to renew the ACA subsidies, he is inevitably going to cost those healthcare insurance companies billions in profits. So he's got to know that, right? Got to be some other off-ramp for him, because he wouldn't do that if there wasn't some other way that they were going to recoup the funds or something. Let me get into this. Now, just so you know, earlier this summer, I did a bunch of research on kind of healthcare insurance and the ACA, just a little bit about this topic, because I was covering it in one of my podcast episodes. So I have the transcript because I was reading through it and I thought there's a lot of really valuable information in here. And considering that this is December 31st, which is technically the last day that these subsidies are supposed to be funded by the government, I thought I would go ahead and share this stuff with you just so you know it. And again, I'm reading from a transcript, so bear with me. So here we go. America's largest health insurers have raked in more than $371 billion with a B, in profits since the passage of the Affordable Care Act. The landmark law passed in 2010 expanded health insurance coverage and helped to reform the healthcare system. While it succeeded in making insurance more affordable, it required insurers to cover pre-existing conditions. It provided tax credits for lower income Americans, and it allowed young adults to remain on their parents' insurance until age 26. But it also made the top insurance providers in America very fucking rich. If you don't remember, in the beginning, there was a mandate which required every single person in America to buy an insurance policy, and the government would subsidize the cost to encourage you to do this. And if you didn't do it, you had to pay an extra fine when you went to do your taxes. You had to prove that you had insurance. That meant that there was like 35 or 40 million more Americans that would have to buy a policy. So the healthcare insurance companies are like ka-ching because they've got all these new customers. What's interesting about this is that's the very first part of the Affordable Care Act that the Republicans in Congress started chipping away at. They believe in personal freedom. You shouldn't be forced to have insurance. Your body, your choice. And so they fought and fought and fought and went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they removed the mandate. But again, so many people wanted to be insured, needed to be insured, that they went ahead and went into the marketplace and bought insurance. Now, I just mentioned huge profits for all of those insurance companies. More than 40% of the net income went to United Healthcare Group, whose annual profits skyrocketed by nearly 400% as the company now reportedly denies 1 in every 3 medical claims from its policyholders. There's more. Last December, when the CEO of their insurance division, Brian Thompson, was killed by a gunman in New York City, the public reaction was clearly one of surprise, not so much sadness. That is probably why. As American families have seen their premiums rise to nearly $26,000 a year, more than $9 trillion of revenue has flowed into the country's largest health insurance companies, which include United Healthcare Group, Cigna, Kaiser Permanente, Elevance Health, which is the parent company of Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, and CVS Health, which acquired Aetna in 2018. Additionally, an estimated 20 million people, which is nearly 1 in every 12 Americans, now has medical debt, with roughly 3 million people each owing more than $10,000. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau estimates that $88 billion worth of medical debt is reflected on individuals' credit reports. Oh, but wait, there's more. Medical debt contributes to around 2/3 of the U.S. bankruptcies every year, potentially affecting hundreds of thousands of American families. This can happen to those with or without insurance. High deductibles, co-payments, and denied claims can leave many insured Americans with insurmountable medical bills. Some studies show that more than half of those who filed for medical bankruptcy had private insurance. And today's the day. It's about to get much worse for the poorest Americans. The ACA tax credit that I've been mentioning is set to expire as of tonight at midnight, which means an additional 4 million people could become uninsured. The ACA has always provided states with the option to expand Medicaid to help insure their lowest income citizens. The federal government pledges to cover the vast majority of those costs. But to this day, 15 fucking years later, there are still 10 states that have refused Medicaid expansions. If you live in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kansas, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Wisconsin, and Wyoming, yeah, they fucked you. When the Republican-led Congress passed Trump's big, beautiful bullshit fucking bill last summer, they did so, knowing the significant cuts to Medicaid and the changes to the Affordable Care Act would cause 13.7 million more Americans to be uninsured over the next decade. I mean, this seems like the really Christian thing to do is to just fuck over people and let them die of their illnesses. I don't know. But here's what I really need you to know. If you've stuck around this long, you've earned this part. Of the more than 70 million claim denials Americans receive every year from their insurance companies, less than 1% of them ever appeal the decision. You have the right to challenge a denied claim. Yet a 2024 survey found that over half of patients who did not challenge the bill were unaware that they could do so. I'm here to tell you, fucking fight it. You may think it's too much of an administrative burden, or you face systematic barriers, limited resources, or you might believe that nothing will come of it anyway. But let me tell you, you should know that 3/4 of the claim appeals are granted. And in 2024, 54% of denials challenged by providers were eventually overturned and paid. Insurance companies get rich off playing the odds that you will go away quietly. You will never ask why. You will never push back. Their entire mission is to fucking outlast you. You cannot win if you don't fight. Get yourself in the game. Stand up for yourself. Your rates are about to go way up, but every time they deny you, please, for the love of God, fight them. Fight them at every single turn because you've paid for the coverage and you deserve it.
My husband and I are in the same boat as so many people right now, and I just logged in to our health insurance provider, and I can't even in July of 2025, our health insurance premium went from $59 a month from $59 a month to $798 a month. And since it is now open enrollment, I just logged in to our health insurance to see what, if we stay on the same plan, what our premium is going to be for 2026. $1,208.91 a month. Our family deductible has gone from $0 to $11,900. Our primary care copays have doubled. Our urgent care copay went from $10 to $60. Our generic prescription copay has doubled. And this is coming off of the fact that my husband just had to have a prescription filled that is supposed to be covered by insurance. And you want to know what the copay was on that after insurance? $1,200 for a prescription, on top of the $798 health insurance premium that we just paid. And this doesn't have to do, this is separate from everyone else's rising costs in health insurance, but we are self-employed. We are real estate agents. And this is just in addition to the next time somebody wants to devalue or question how much their real estate agent is getting paid and wants them to take a reduction in their commission, just remember that your real estate agent is going through the same things as you, paying this out of pocket if they even have health insurance, withholding their own taxes, if they can even afford to do so. And this is on top of the multitudes of thousands of dollars per month we have to pay in housing, or the thousands of dollars a month my mother was costing us before I cut her off recently. We can't, and it's not like the real estate market is just on fire right now. I don't know if we can keep our heads above water next year. And I know we're not the only ones going through this, and this just makes me sick.
I lost my health insurance coverage back in September when my subsidies went from $25 a month to $516 a month. And this was not like premium top grade insurance, right? And so I have been without. And I was hanging out with some older friends of mine last night, and they were telling me that, you really need to be on health insurance. If you get hurt, if you get sick, you will be financially ruined. And I was telling them that I had been on health insurance for the last few years. And the last several times I went to the doctors, they did not help me. I had to pay hundreds of dollars out of pocket for doctors to look me in my face and say things like, use your hands less. That was the actual medical diagnosis. When I went in, I thought I had rheumatoid arthritis in my hands at age 35. And my doctor's advice was use your hands less. I paid money for her to tell me that. And then last year, I had a stomach issue. I tried to go to the clinic and they're like, well, because it's your stomach, you have to go to the ER in case you're pregnant. I'm like, I'm definitely not pregnant. It is a 0% chance that I am pregnant. Let me just assure you, okay, the life I live, I'm not pregnant. And they're like, sorry, I literally could not go to a clinic, which only would have cost me $120 out the door for everything that I needed. They had to refund me and make me go to the ER. So then I'm at the ER for 5.5 hours. I have to get a CT scan, which charged my insurance $15,000. I end up paying over $600 out of pocket for, at the end of this visit, for the doctor to look me in the eyeballs and shrug and say, maybe try over-the-counter antacids. So going back to my friends who are trying to get me to get the health insurance, one of them has a foot injury right now, and they made an appointment to go to the doctor on Friday, and they told me this morning they got a phone call from that doctor's office that they had the appointment with, and the office had to cancel his appointment because they don't accept his insurance. And they have very, very good insurance. But the clinic that he was going to go to, they didn't renew their contract with his provider. So now he has to hope he can get into a clinic somewhere. And oh, by the way, he can't fucking walk right now. And that's the situation with health insurance. So if you are in another country and you are wondering what's it like for American healthcare, it's a scam. It's literally a scam. It takes thousands of dollars from us every year. They charge our insurance companies insane amounts. And all the people who profit are the doctors and the shareholders. Everybody else, they get shafted. The patients get shafted. The nurses get shafted. The rest of the hospital, the support staff, the people who stock the Pyxis machines, the cafeteria workers, the janitors, they all get shafted. But not the shareholders. Because it's probably worth mentioning that healthcare in America is actually, at this point, super privatized. And that's exactly what the GOP wants. They are literally pricing us out of healthcare. Making America great means making sure millions, tens of millions of Americans cannot afford healthcare anymore. And just to remind you guys, we could afford it before, barely, but we could afford it. And even my very wealthy friends who have much better options, they got the retirement funds and the 401ks and the this and that and all this, smart grown-up financial stuff. And they can't get a doctor's appointment. And that's Trump's American healthcare.
I'm an accountant for a company that has a few hundred employees, and one of my responsibilities is to make sure people are paying for their health insurance. We contract traveling nurses, and if they don't work for a week and they don't take any PTO, then we have to take the deductions in a different week of pay. This year, out of the couple hundred traveling nurses who work under us, 25 to 30 of them that I can remember had family health insurance, and it was about $580 a week. Very, very good health insurance, mind you. No deductible, just copays. How many of them do you think have health insurance next year? 20? 2. It's 2. There are now 2 people with family insurance because the premium is now $868 a week. That is more than $3,000 a month. Oh, no. Here's the kicker. For all of my non-American followers who don't understand how a deductible works, you pay that amount I just said out of your paycheck, and then you have to pay the deductible before your insurance starts covering a portion of the care. So not only is there now a deductible, it is now $15,000 for a family. So this family needs to pay almost $40,000 a year just in premiums, and then add the 15 on top of it. $55,000 total before the insurance does anything to help them. The median household income in this country is not even double $55K. It's barely double $40K. So the insurance has gotten a lot shittier, and it's infinitely more expensive, and there are a bunch of people working under us who are just doing no health insurance for their family anymore. This is the Republican plan for healthcare. It is that you will not be able to afford it, and if you die, fuck you. And it will be this way until at the very least the next Democratic administration comes in and puts together a Band-Aid, which will probably still suck. Until we get socialized medicine in this country, no more private health insurance companies, this is going to get worse. You will not be able to pay for healthcare. It will saddle you with debt and prevent you from owning a home or a car or anything like that for the rest of your life, at least on good terms. You definitely won't be able to get a home. You'll get a car, but it'll have a 26.5% interest rate. The bank will charge you 15 grand for the luxury of you daring to buy something that's about $49,000 on their dime. And this is freedom. This is the richest, best country ever. But until the parasitic private insurance industry is nationalized and dismantled, and we get a single payer system, which by and large is overwhelmingly supported by the majority of Americans, this will continue to be hell.
I just found out that due to the lapse of the ACA subsidies, my health insurance premium is going up 700% from $60 a month to $440 a month. That is half of my rent. That is 25% of my income. And I'm working in a field where I'm making a well above minimum wage.
Hey girl, welcome to what the rest of us have been living with for years. Yeah, your insurance just went up 700%. That's brutal. Now let me gently welcome you to reality. Because not only do I pay for my own health insurance, which is insanely expensive and covers almost nothing, I also help pay for yours. Let's see what else she says.
So I called, of course, my local constitutional law expert, my father, who was the former general counsel for the FCC, who's argued in the Supreme Court about 30 times before he retired in 2008, and won a majority of his cases. He did his clerkship under Chief Justice Berger, et cetera, et cetera. And his advice is to show up. Call, email, annoy your representatives, especially if you're living under a Republican right now.
Fun fact about Obamacare, also known as the Affordable Care Act. It passed without a single Republican vote. Not one. So blaming Republicans for the structure of the ACA is confusing. They didn't design it, they didn't vote for it, they didn't pass it. And that doesn't mean the system works, because it doesn't. And everyone always says, oh, you talk about problems, but you never talk about solutions. I'm about to spoon feed you some. These are solutions that Charlie Kirk recommended that I'm also on board with. Number 1, allow insurance competition across state lines. Number 2, provide direct assistance for people with pre-existing conditions, instead of forcing everyone into the same bloated system. Number 3, make insurance portable. You shouldn't lose coverage just because you change jobs. Number 4, require real price transparency. Patients should know what something costs before treatment, not after and they get a surprise bill. Number 5, use tax credits so lower income families can buy private insurance instead of forcing everyone into one trapped government control model. So yeah, healthcare is broken, but yelling at the wrong people and ignoring basic economics isn't fixing it.
Hey guys, if the cost of health insurance feels suffocating to you, I want to remind you that I was a cash patient and my family were cash patients for 10 years. In other words, for 10 years, we didn't have health insurance. And I have to tell you how awesome this is. If you're a healthy individual, please get rid of your health insurance. When you go to the doctor, even if you have to get scans done, even if you have to get tests done, the price will often be 10 to 20%. Yes, I said that correctly. They will give you a bill and then you remind them that you're a cash patient, that you're going to pay them right there. Or maybe if it's a lot, you can even make monthly payments. And they will reduce it to 10 to 20% of the original price because they no longer have to deal with health insurance companies or maybe even hospitals to get their money back. And so please, 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 if you're a healthy individual and the price of healthcare is suffocating you, which I understand because back in 2014, so this was a while ago, when my health insurance for my family was $14,000 a year, and then my employer was paying another $4,000 or $5,000, so about $20,000 total. And I was like, this is outrageous. We're not even spending enough to meet our deductibles. This is paying for nothing. So we became cash patients. And man, was it so much more affordable. But for 10 years, guys, we had no health insurance. And being cash patients as healthy people was amazing. You get such cheaper prices. So please, if you're a healthy individual, get rid of your health insurance and pay those lower prices.
Millions of Americans just woke up in 2026 with a fucked up surprise. Their health insurance just increased drastically in price. Overnight, the enhanced ACA subsidies expired, and Congress did nothing to stop it. Nothing. But I don't think anyone is surprised. These tax credits kept premiums affordable for over 20 million people. Self-employed workers, farmers, small business owners, parents, people who don't get insurance from a job and don't qualify for Medicaid or Medicare. Some families are seeing costs double. Others are seeing them triple. One mom's premium went from $85 a month to nearly $750. Another went from $350 to $500 just to stay covered. Lawmakers knew this deadline was coming for years. Democrats warned about it. Even some Republicans admitted it was a problem. Trump floated a fix, then backed off after conservative backlash, so the subsidies died. At the same time, Congress already slashed over $1 trillion from healthcare and food assistance, and now millions are being told to figure it out. Experts say nearly 5 million people could drop coverage entirely this year because they simply cannot afford it, which makes healthcare more expensive for everyone else. So that sucks. People are now choosing between rent, groceries, and staying alive. Keep in mind, this is a political choice. Affordability is voters' number one issue heading into the midterms, and Washington just made healthcare dramatically more expensive for millions of families.
You know, I remember my grandmom saying to me a long, long time ago before she parted ways with the world that she felt that health insurance companies were some of the biggest scams that exist out there. And you know, it could be that she's right. And the approach I'm going to take here in this part of the video is I'm going to take the approach of describing what I feel is not going well right now with the current scheme versus what I see happening in other countries and just kind of comparing the quality of life across the board between American health insurance and non-American health insurance, we'll just say. First and foremost, it just makes absolutely no sense that someone would need to pay an entire rent payment in order to afford health care for themselves or themselves and their families. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make sense that I would have to pay $500, $1,000, $2,000 a month just to buy the ability to be covered in the event of something happening. By the time something happens, if I'm a perfectly healthy person, I'm already paying about $12,000 to $24,000 a year in health insurance premiums. So really, it doesn't really add up. The numbers don't match. And I think that's why a lot of Americans are getting more and more frustrated with the current situation. You know, you look across the board. I remember a long, long, long time ago when I first started working, and I was paying about $100 a month, $150 a month for healthcare. We're talking a long time ago. Okay, I'm revealing my age right now, but a long time ago, it was about 100, 150 a month. Obviously, the employer would cover part of that, but it was quite affordable. Now, my gripe back then was that the health insurance companies didn't really cover everything. Like, you had the in-network and then the out-network. I think you had the HMO, then the PPO, and then all these acronyms that were being tossed at us to somewhat confuse us, so that way we wouldn't even go through the process of filing claims or worrying about what exactly is covered. I think it's done by design, to be quite honest with you. That's just my opinion, though. Maybe other people beg to differ. But with that being said, I think right now we're at a precipice of a change being needed. Because at the end of the day, these people right now in America cannot afford these payments. They have to choose between rent, groceries, and healthcare. And quite obviously, they have to pay their rent or else they'll be homeless. They have to buy groceries or else they'll end up in starvation. So in most cases, they're going to opt out of healthcare. And that's just very sad what's happening. Now, if you look across the board overseas, like way overseas, so in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and even in Canada, let's just throw Canada in the mix. I used to live in Canada, so I can give you some feedback there. You probably already know, you've heard the stories from Senator Bernie Sanders and other people that, the Europeans and the Canadians and the Asians, they don't have to worry about this. And this is exactly right. Let me tell you a little bit of a story. A while ago, one of my family members who suffers from asthma, they were looking to buy an asthma pump, okay, in the States. At the time, we were living in New York. And I had health care. I was fully covered, and this person was on my policy. Long story short, when they went into a drugstore to buy the health care, to buy the to buy the pump, the asthma pump, they were told that the asthma pump will cost them about $200. They went overseas with me, And that same asthma pump with no insurance cost them $10, the equivalent of 10 US dollars. At the time, it was like 7 or 8 euros. And it was the equivalent of 10 US dollars for the same exact asthma pump. So I call it highway robbery. And Bernie Sanders did call that out. And listen, I don't agree with everything Bernie Sanders says. I am not a Democrat and I am not a Republican. I just love capitalism, but I love common sense as well. And common sense tells me that the healthcare premiums in America are just far too expensive and they're not worth a drop of piss, to be quite honest with you. They're just not worth a drop of piss. You're better off, not paying for insurance and saving up your cash in some sort of virtual wallet or a virtual jar. And if something happens, then you can dig in that cash reserve and pay for medical expenses. It doesn't make sense that I have to spend my entire savings on something that I hope I would never have to use. You go overseas, go to Germany, go to Denmark, you're spending anywhere from $100 a month all the way up to maybe 300 maximum. But with the 300 euros or dollars a month, you're getting fully covered. There is no such concept as an in-network or out-of-network in most of the European Union. It's you pay for healthcare and you're covered fully. There will be a list of exclusions for sure that would not be covered, but usually they're incidentals that are not necessarily very expensive to cover on your own. The most expensive stuff gets covered, and that's what really matters. And that's why in socialist societies like what most of the EU is, they don't have to worry about these issues. Capitalism, as much as I like to tout capitalism and say how much I love it, there is one major negative. And that major negative is the fact that with scenarios like this, with healthcare, it creates more greed within the healthcare system in which insurance companies can price gouge you. All right, they can price gouge you and they can force people to pay a lot higher premiums in an effort to profit more. Whereas in other countries, a lot of stuff is controlled on the government level. Take Germany, for example. Like Germany, the German government oversees a lot of the regulations within the health insurance industry. And they take a look at the average premiums across the board, and the premiums are to some degree regulated on the federal level. For example, recently a friend of mine told me that the insurance premiums in Germany also went up, but they were not allowed to go up more than a certain percent. I think it was like 2% or something like that. So that is nominal compared to the price increases we've seen in America. And I'll tell you from experience, most people are looking at America right now as a joke, especially when it comes to healthcare. The number one question I get when I'm overseas and I'm meeting with a person, when they find out I'm American, it's not a question about, oh, how's it for black people there? It's not a question about, oh, what happened with the Yankees. The question is always, what's wrong with your healthcare system? It's always the same question. It never changes. Anything else that gets played on TV, yeah, they'll question about a little bit about that. But the number one thing they always ask about is, how do Americans afford the healthcare? And this is before the most recent 2026 changes. They were asking me this back in like 2014, 2015. They were asking me, what's up with the healthcare cost? And I always had to put my head down in shame and say, yeah, we just paid for it. And then back then, I always had an excuse, but at least we make higher salaries and we don't pay high taxes. Now, I'll also jump on the taxes thing a little bit. I want you guys to kind of just think for 1 second, right? And the numbers here that I'm about to quote may not be 100% correct, or let me not say correct, 100% accurate to the T, but they're fairly accurate, okay? Let's say, for example, the corporate tax rate in America is 15%, and the personal tax rate will vary anywhere from between 18% to 24 or 25%, okay? So fairly moderate, not so high, not so low in most cases, because there are countries that have lower taxes than that and countries that have way higher. In the European Union, you're looking at a range for most European countries between 43 to 52%. So they can actually tax you more than what you earn. Like they can tax you for more than half of your salary, essentially. Now, I want you to think about this. How much are you guys about to pay in insurance premiums? I'm waiting. Quite a bit, right? Let's say that if you're earning about, I don't know, 50, 60,000 a year, what does that break down to? That breaks down to roughly anywhere from 4,500 to 5,000 a month, roughly, give or take a few thou. Um, you're making that, okay, at your job, and you're about to pay about 1,000, 2,000 a month in healthcare insurance. And on top of that, let me throw this in: you're not being covered for everything. Like, not every surgery is covered, not every medical condition is covered. And on top of that, you have to pay a deductible. And on top of that, you have to pay a copay in most cases. How is that fair? Whereas in other countries in the European Union, yes, you may have to pay high taxes on your income, but everything else is covered. And when you do the math, you're actually saving more money in the European Union. Now, I don't agree with the high tax rates that you see in the European Union. I think they can do a little bit better there to give more tax credits, especially to business owners or self-employed people. I think they could do a little bit more there. But all in all, with respect to healthcare, you're paying a lot less over time. And in many cases, you don't have to pay a copay. You may only have a copay to go to like a dentist, which is usually not that much money. To get like a cleaning every year is like 60, 70 bucks. You may have an occasional cavity or something that may cost you 100, but overall you're paying like 100 to 200 bucks a month for as a single person, and maybe 400 as a family of four. And by the way, in some European countries, children don't have to pay for insurance. You don't have to pay additional premiums for children under the age of anywhere from like 8 to 18. You don't have to pay. Actually, it really depends on the country, but in America, you must pay for everything. So I definitely feel these people's pain. Me personally, I'm planned for the future to not have to pay these premiums. To be honest with you, that's the reason why I have one foot in America and one foot out of America. Like, I'm constantly traveling back over. I have my property overseas, and I don't have to worry about these issues like most Americans do. But I really think this is one of the reasons why we're seeing a mass exodus out of the United States. If you saw my prior video that I posted, this is explaining exactly why a lot of Americans are leaving. So if you haven't checked that video out, check it out. Make sure you do that. But my last point here is, look, these are very difficult times in America. In fact, globally, it's very difficult. But as Americans who are used to having their ways, with respect to having the typical American dream where you have the house or the nice condo with a backyard where the kids and the dog can run around. Sorry to say, but I think these days may be far removed in the near future. And I'm not really sure where we'll end up. My guess is that we're going to be seeing a political shift and an economic shift that may involve some elements of socialism demanded by the people going forward. It may not be a full-fledged socialist system as we see in Europe, in many parts of Europe, but you're probably going to notice a little bit of support going forward for the Bernie Sanders ideology, in which healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. You'll see a lot of Americans talking about that, and I find it very difficult to believe that Americans going forward will vote against having healthcare coverage in the near future, especially if another, God forbid, another pandemic hits. I think you're going to see a lot more Americans be in support of the progressive policies in the government. So only time will tell. For the time being, make sure you take care of yourselves, take care of your family members. If you don't have the money to get insured, start looking into options. Like, for example, within America, there are some clinics. I know of a few in New York, for example, that will take you on as a patient, even if you don't have health care. You would have to pay a small monthly amount. Usually it's like $100, $150. And they'll take you on. I think they give you up to like a couple of times per month as a doctor's visit. And anything extra, obviously you can go to a hospital, or they can prescribe you medicine in some cases as well. So you can look into those types of clinics that exist. There are also new services out there. I won't plug them here on this video because they're not giving me sponsorship, but there are definitely some new apps out there in which you can get healthcare at a more affordable cost. Obviously, it's not full-fledged healthcare, but it's at least something that will cover the basic of needs as you'll need it for your family. So, that's all I can tell you. Outside of that, your longer term goal should be to try to look into other countries, because the last thing I'll say here is the most ironic thing is that in other countries that are recognized as being third world countries, for example, these countries sometimes have better healthcare systems than America. And I'm serious when I say that. Like in the Philippines, they have some of the best doctors in the world, and also in Thailand. Thailand's medical system and the technology that they use is pretty good. I won't say it beats the American technology, but it's definitely on par and it works well. And I know a lot of people who went to Thailand for surgeries with great success rates, and they've had no issues. And the price was far cheaper to get these operations done over there versus in the States. So again, guys, there are options out there. You have to be open-minded. Let's let go a little bit of the old "my country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty" mindset, in which we only believe it exists in America and no other country has it. We got to learn to let go of that. But if your peace and tranquility is only in America, there are definitely options for you. You just have to look deeper, and you have to be very diligent about every move you make. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you for listening to me and checking out this video. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this video, and YouTube believes that you like this one right here. So give it a click, and I'll see you on the next one.